On this video, I'm going to show you how to go on a curve. So lately in class, you just learned that we were only using straight lines and we were using G01s. Okay, so now we're going to start using G02 and G03. You can see on this right side, G02 is clockwise, G03 is counterclockwise. And as we get to I and J, we'll talk more about that later. Okay, so I've started a code for you. This is the simplest code that I can think of. So obviously the ones you guys made in class are are more detailed. So I would not take this code. This was just a filler so to show you that I'm starting the code. And then on this one, this is the beginning of most codes also. The X and Y here, I haven't filled it in. I'm going to fill it in later. And then this is a rapid to point A. So we're going to start at point A. And this will also be our starting point. And then you have G01, and then we're going to plunge at A. And then after that, we're going to do the cutting. So we're going to use a combination of G01s and G02 and G03. Okay. Um, G02 is clockwise. So from B to C, we would use G02. From D to E, this is actually counterclockwise and going in this direction. Let me see if I can use a mouse here. I can't use a mouse. It's okay. All right. So anyway, oh, here you go. This is nice. So from D to E, it's counterclockwise going this way. Okay. And then from B to C is clockwise. So we would use a G02 here. We would use a G03 here. And then we would use a G02 in this direction from F to G. Okay. Um, let's see. What else is there? We need to know the midpoint. So usually when you have a circle, so this is actually an arc that is part of a circle. So the code I'm showing you, it works usually for a quarter of a circle. Okay. So imagine this is a full circle. Okay. We're only using quarter of it, or 1/4 of it. Okay. So imagine it's a full circle. The radius from B to H is the same. The distance is the same from H to C. So if you count the number of squares, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the same over here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, same thing here. So this one is divided. The radius is 3 squares, and this one is 2 squares. Okay. All right. So here you have G00. We would start with A. To get A, let's see. A is actually let's see if I can move this around here. There you go. Okay. So the Y for A is 1.6875. So I'm going to put here for Y 1.6875. And then the X is 3750. Okay. So that's the X for A. So I'm just following this black line here. 0.3. Look at it. 3750. 3750. Okay, so that's the starting point A. I also put comments in here so you can follow along where I'm going. And so um, we got close. We wrap it to A, got close to it, and then we plunge at A. So we're cutting now at A at this point. You notice I didn't put also the end codes just for the sake of making this faster. So now I'm going to start cut to from A to B. So G01, I'm going to get the X and Y coordinate of B, and this is a feed rate of 20. Okay, so point B. Okay, so for B, the Y is 1.6875, and then for the X, I just look down here, following that line where H is also 6875. Okay, 6875, 0.6875. Okay, I'm going to move my comments 2 more spots. Okay, two more tabs. And now this is where G02 um, uh, comes in. So from B to C. So here we're going to plug in G02. Okay. Um, Now we're going to state the ending point, which is C. So this the X and Y is for the C. So for the C, it's 1.4375, and then the X is down 0.9375, 0.9375. And then we have to add in J, I and J. So I and J is the distance of the starting point. So the starting point is B, okay? Um, and the center point is H. So I is the distance of B from H, okay? Um, so in this case, I'm sorry, what is the distance of B and H in the X direction? So since they have the same X, I is 0, okay? So remember, X is going left to right, and B and H are on the same X. So the distance from each other is 0. So how do we get 0? If you take B and H, it's right here. 6.875 minus 6.875. I'm sorry. 0.6875 minus 0.6875 is 0. Okay, and so that's why I is 0. So incremental distance, it's not the coordinate, it's how far they are from each other. So if I count how many squares these are um, and subtract them, if I found how many squares there are, then that's the distance of starting point and um, what do you call this? And center point. Okay, so J is the same thing. J now is the distance of B and H um, in the Y direction. Okay, so you notice there are three squares. I'm sorry, one, two, three, four squares. Okay, if I take those four squares and I look down here, I notice that four squares is one, two, three, four. It's 0.25. So I'm going to use 0.25. Okay, 0.25. However, H is below B. So that distance where H is actually negative. Okay. All right. So that's negative. So what I've done is instead of using Notepad, I transferred everything to NC Viewer. Okay. So that we can see where we are. So when I click plot, I can see I just made that curve. So you notice again, remember this is negative, okay? So now I'm just gonna put my comment here. This is a clockwise. I'm gonna put CW, cut to point C, okay? Now we're gonna cut straight to, actually, let's put a feed rate here. So just to get used to it, you need to have a feed rate. When you are using G01, G02, you have to have a feed rate. Technically, we don't have to put a feed rate of F20 there because we are already using F20 for G01. But anyway, it's a good habit to know to have it, to keep using it. So we're going to cut straight C to D. Okay. So my next point, it will be to C to D. So I'm going to look for the X and Y of my D point. So the Y for D is 1. I'll put 1, 0, 0, 0. And one more 0. And then the X for D is 0.9375 right there. Okay, for D, 0.9375. And then F20 again, just for the feed rate, for the sake of putting a feed rate. This one is cut to point D. Okay, now I'm shortening my comments for the sake of time. And now, since I'm going counterclockwise on this one, I'm going to use G03. So G03, X again is the ending point of which is E in this case. and the y is also the ending point of E. So the ending point, the y for E is 0.8125, and then the x is 0.75. Okay. Again, my feed rate is 20. I'm sorry, I forgot the I and J. Um, so for the meantime, let's actually, I'm going to plot this later. So let's do the I and J first. So the I is the distance of J, of the distance of D from uh, the distance of D and J. Okay. Um, from starting point to center point. So since they're sharing the same X, okay, which is 0.9375, the distance within the X direction is 0. So again, this is 0. Okay. J, the distance in the Y direction are three spaces, three squares. So if I look down here, three squares is 0.1875. So I'm going to put here 0. 0.1875. And since center point is below um, starting point, this will be negative. Okay. Again, feed rate of F20, semicolon. This one is counterclockwise. So I'm going to put CCW, cut to point E. Okay, I'm going to plot this for the sake of looking for it, making sure that we got it right. There you go. I went straight cut to D, and then you have a counterclockwise with a G03, and that's why you see that. Okay. All right. So now we're going to cut to F. So again, that's a straight point, a straight cut. So G01, X, and Y on F20 point semicolon. So my X for my ending point is F, is 0.5. So I'm going to type in 0.5 here. Okay. And then the Y is 0.8125. 0.8125. Okay. All right. So anyway, that's a straight cut. So that's pretty easy. We've done it many times already. So cut to point F. Okay. I don't like how the comments are kind of grouping here. So I'm going to just move them forward a bit. Okay. Make it look neater. All right. Oops. Okay. So anyway, so that's point F, right? Now we're gonna do another one, which is um, G02 because we're going clockwise. So we're gonna type in G02, my point for my ending point, X and Y for my ending point, which is G. Um, I'm going to type in my G. My Y would be for G is 0.9375. And then the X for G is, so again, it's right here. That's why I got my Y. And my G is, the X is 0.375. 0.375. 0.375. Okay. And then my I, the distance of my starting point to um, my center. Um, the I is 0. Okay. And then, oops. And then my J, it's 2 squares. So I'm going to look for what 2 squares equal to. 2 squares is 0.125. Okay, 0.125, 0, F20, period, semicolon. So this one is a um, clockwise. So I'm going to put CW for comment, cut to point G. Okay, I'm going to plot it. I should have plotted earlier for F, but let's plot it anyway. And so you end up getting that curve right there. Okay, so when you plot curves, especially if it's a quarter of a circle, you would use G01 or G02 or G03 with the I and J. Okay, um, you can also use radius for these. So instead of using I and J, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete the I and J here. Okay, I'm going to put R, and the radius on this one is, again, it's two squares. So it's usually, so this only works when your ending point and starting point are the same distance to the center. Okay, because you're going to use the same radius. So since you are using two squares there, this is 0.125. So I want to put 0.125. Oops, 0.125. Hopefully this works. I'm going to plot it. Still get the same thing. Okay, so let's say I'll start from here and I plot this. So that radius, you only look at the radius, you're not using distance from starting point to center point, which is easy. But again, you have to make sure that the distance of your starting and ending point are the same distance to the center. So technically, we can change all my I and J's to some kind of radius. This one is 3 squares away. So 3 squares is 1875. So I'm going to put here 0.1875. And then my I and J here. Okay. There are 4 squares away. 4 squares away is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 0.25. So I'm going to type in R 0.25. Okay. I'm going to plot it, see how it looks. Still the same. Okay. So if I start off over here and plot that, it still takes the radius. Okay. Sometimes machines will take radius over I and J, or vice versa. So that's how you plot curves. Again, there are some rules you have to follow. The curves, it's a quarter of a circle. So that means your starting point and ending point are the same distance to the center. And it only works in that fashion. Now, if you're going to do like a half, if you're going to do like a half circle, then you would plot it twice. G02 from B to C, and then another G02 from C to the next point, let's say D. Okay, so that will be like a half circle. All right, and that's it. Thank you.